Hey everyone, happy Friday. It is time once again for another episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. I'm going to say this now because I will probably forget later, but there will not be a Saturday episode of Day in the Life of Vintage Classic Specialist. We are heading to San Diego to see my family. So this is it for this week. Unless, I don't know, I may try and think of something quick to film before I head out tonight that I can release on the weekend. But other than that, this is it for this week. So anyway, so let me talk about what I did today, and I will come back to this, but sneak peek here. Here's some new merch that's going to be available. I got to just release it in my store. Probably do that this evening. So I'll come back to that though, and I'll show you guys those really close. I think you're going to like them. So today, I guess I've just been really in the mood for working on motors here this week. Yesterday, mostly worked on that one, and today worked on this one. So if you saw the thumbnail today and you haven't figured it out yet, then look at this carefully. And now look at that. I'm sure you guys figured this out, but there you go. That's what that is. That is a 25 horsepower VW motor on our logo. Love them. These motors, I think this is probably my favorite motor, even more so than the 36 horse. Even though they're nearly identical, they're just different enough that the coolness factor of the 25 horse to me just puts them over the top. They're just like that much more simple than a 36 horse and stuff. I'll talk about a few of those things. Anyway, so here it is. Yeah. This motor was looking about like this before, but now it's like together for real. Before, the exhaust was just kind of on loosely and stuff like that. The parts were still kind of dirty. So today I'm like, all right, I'm going to put this thing together for real. I was kind of waiting on this intake manifold to come in. It came in, so can, like I said, put it together for real. So started off with rebuilding his fuel pump. So these early fuel pumps are pretty rare. These things are hard to find. So this is called a flat top because top is flat. Later ones have kind of like a more bumpy top. The other thing that you can notice about 36 horse, or excuse me, 25 horse, is how huge this fuel line is. So it's actually bigger than on later cars. I don't know why they thought they needed such an enormous fuel line for only 25 horse, but ironically, it got smaller with later motors that made a lot more power. But super cool looking though. I love how big and fat these fuel lines look. So same as the inlet one. I think 8mm, I think. Anyway, versus 6. I don't remember the exact sizes, but there's two sizes, small and large. Small goes on, or large rather, goes on the 25 horse. Yeah, so very rare fuel pump. Good luck finding one of these, and they're out there, but you're gonna pay a lot. So luckily he had the correct one. And so yeah, finished rebuilding that and installed it. And then I had all the cylinder tin and stuff kind of on here, but I had never really cleaned it before, and it wasn't like filthy or anything, but just went and cleaned it up and degreased everything. Same with the engine case. So if you remember, this motor had been running and driving in this car before somebody pulled it apart and made it a hot rod. So it just had kind of, light grease and dirt all over it. So spent quite a bit of time cleaning the engine case, just, getting it fairly spotless. Back here, under here, just cleaning the whole thing up. I don't like installing motors that are dirty, so just went ahead and cleaned it up. Cleaned up and painted the little sump plate here. Quick, coat of paint on it. It was all scratched and stuff. Cleaned the little mesh filter in there. Put in new gaskets, all that good stuff. So from there, pretty much just started assembling it. So the heater boxes had some scratches in the paint, and I don't know, they'd been red at some point. There was like where some of the black paint was scratched off, there was red showing through, which looked fairly bad. So touched up the paint here and there on those, cleaned them real good, including the actual heater parts down here. Just degreased everything, got it good and cleaned up, put those on. And then, yeah, from there, pretty much put the manifold on. It's not actually bolted on yet. It's just sort of sitting on there because I neglected to order the gaskets between the manifold and the head, and they're actually quite a bit smaller than 36 horse ones. You'd think these would be the same, but nope, they're different. And I didn't have a pair of 25 horse ones. So this is just sitting here. I just basically got to lift it up. There's little like crush washers essentially that go in here as the gasket. Lift that up a little, slip those in, and then this can bolt in. So probably get those on, I don't know, maybe Tuesday or so realistically. But that didn't stop me from also putting on the fan shroud. I did my best to kind of clean up his generator and stuff, clean the fan shroud itself. He had some hardware that was a bit incorrect. These bolts that were holding the generator and fan assembly were anodized like the gold, kind of common gold color that you see hardware a lot of times. Totally wrong for this motor and kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. Likewise on his coil, the bolts were okay, but then the washers were also that same kind of like gold, hardware store looking finish. So replace those with some proper silver ones. And what else? Yeah, then I went ahead and put his carburetor together. So Jacob had previously pulled it apart, and we blasted it and cleaned everything, and ultrasonically cleaned all the parts and everything, and then went ahead and put a new kit in that today, got it together. So this is a 26 millimeter carburetor that come on these, by the way. Yeah, it's a 26 VFIS. I have no idea what that stands for. Solix, of course. And the thing that I love, I was talking earlier about how much simpler a 25 horse compared to a 36 horse is, and the carburetor is one of the parts that makes it much more simple. If you look at this carburetor and you have a keen eye and are used to looking at carburetors, especially Volkswagen ones, you'll notice something missing. And if you haven't figured that out yet, it's the accelerator pump. There is no accelerator pump on these. It's basically just the body, a float bowl, 3 jets or so, and that's pretty much it. And you know what? They run great. And when you sort of goose the throttle on these things, the motor responds. So who knew? Apparently you don't really need an accelerator pump. I don't know. These run great without it. The other thing I love about these, which is actually kind of the same as some later carburetors too, is just how simple the choke mechanism works. So you got a separate cable that comes through here, and when you manually pull the choke lever, it pulls this down here. And you can see that lever actually actuates the throttle lever down there, and that's how you get your high-speed idle in addition to closing the choke plate. So that actually carried on for several carburetors until they went to the electric choke. But again, just part of the simplicity of these that I really love. He does have the star coil, which is also pretty hard to find, and the cool early coil clamps. All these details, super cool. I think technically the star coil may be a bit earlier than 52. I'll have to double check that, but it's a bitchin' coil, so there you go. It looks great on there. What else? So yeah, the exhaust intake loosely on there, the fan shroud, everything. I couldn't resist digging out his air cleaner. It's just sort of sitting on here at the moment and putting it on because I really wanted to get this angle of this, which again, boom, there it is right there. It's our logo. Excuse me. So yeah, that was pretty much it. Cleaning parts and assembling this thing for real. Everything went on pretty cooperatively. I did have one exhaust stud where when I tightened it, it just basically like started pulling the stud right out of the cylinder head. Luckily, the stud itself was a little short, and so there were threads, quite a bit of threads left past the stud. So I put in a longer one, and then there was actually a little bit of space up underneath there where I was able to put a nut on it from kind of back. I don't know. I can't really get my finger back there now because the tin is on there. But yeah, I was actually able to get a nut on the other side of this, so kind of like back in here. So it's not going anywhere now. Got it good and tightened down. So yeah, pretty much everything you see on this motor now, with the exception of the intake manifold, is on there for good. Well, and also the exception of the breastplate, because I'll probably go ahead and pull that off when I go to install the motor. But so that was my day, and I was having fun. I love putting motors together. So pretty cool last part of the week here, putting these two very different yet very similar motors together. Again, the 1500 single port for the 67, and then today the numbers matching. By the way, if anyone's new here, this case actually number matching to this car. Numbers matching 52 25 horsepower motor, putting that together today. So that's what I worked on. So now, without further ado, let me show you the new merch here that I'm kind of proud of. So I think I've already kind of mentioned that I was going to do this. So just kind of a variation on our logo, because I can't imagine that everyone really wants a 25 horsepower motor on their shirt. I mean, we love it. It's our logo. It's not going to change. However, for the sake of merchandise and things that might appeal more broadly to people, made a couple new ones, and there's more sort of in the queue. The first one I'll talk about is this one here. So this is it's kind of hard to tell from the front, but this is a barn door bus here on the front of the shirt and the pocket area, and then from the back is the same big logo is on our other shirts, but with the back of the bus. So barn door, early barn door there. So you can tell it's a barn door because of the giant ass deck lid. So that's one. And then likewise, the other one I did is a split window, which you can kind of tell. You can see a little bit of the split there, and the fact that it's got, you can kind of see the round front grills there. But then from the back, of course, unmistakably split window. So there you go. I hope you guys like these. I will probably try and make these available tonight. I just got a couple mouse clicks or so to make these go live in the store. And yeah, I hope you guys like them. You can add them to your collection if you've already got the other shirt, which is again the one with our regular logo on it. So that is it for this week, guys. Again, I won't be in tomorrow because I'm going to be with family in San Diego. So I guess I will see you guys all again on Monday. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.